Hello everyone. So this is another video, and the intent of this video is to see how we can connect or we can communicate with an Azure blob storage using Python code. So let's start. I think the first thing that we'll look at is this sample storage account on Azure that I've already created. And if I quickly look at the storage browser and browse content, this will have one container. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to make sure that this container is empty. Oh, it's already empty. That's great. So I'm just going to quickly see. So now this blob container has different things that you can do with it. It has a blob container, it has file share, queues and tables. But for today, what we are going to focus is how we can communicate with blob containers, and that too specifically this container. It's always a scenario that you can communicate with blob storage using three different ways. The first one is the access keys. So you just need to go to access keys and you see two different set of access keys. And then the second way is using a connection string, and the third way is using a shared access signature. So imagine it in a way that the access keys, or the access key 1 and access key 2, always stays and has complete access on the complete resource. You can do every read write. It's the maximum level of access that can be. Although you can rotate keys, you can create new ones, but the point is that these keys have the utmost access that can happen on an storage account, and same goes for this connection string. But what if you want to restrict access to a certain set of data, and that too for a specific or for a specific duration? So that's where the shared access signature comes into picture. You mention the service that you want to give access to. Let's say we only concerned with blobs, and the kind of access, let's say containers, and allowed permission is only read. So if you give it an option that it can only read and list from that particular, and does not allow deletion and read and write and filter, and set an expiry time, then after that time, so it will give you an SAS token and a connection string. So after that, after this particular time duration, your access key will this access key will stop working, shared access signature will stop working, and you don't have to explicitly go and remove the access keys. But as part of the or a scope of this particular video, we are only going to deal with access keys and connection strings. So what I have done till now is I have an environment file, I have a requirement.txt, and this is the package that we are going to use, Azure Storage Blob, and this is python.env. This is just to read values from the environment variables. And let's look at the environment variables that I'm going to use, and I'm going to copy from here. So first one is the connection string. I'll copy and I will paste it here, and by the time this video is released, uh, the connection strings will stop working. So I'll make sure that the resource does not exist. Then this is my account URL. Just need to change this. This is my storage account. This is my access key. I'm using one. You can either use access key 1 or 2. And this is the container named raw, which we got from storage account blob container, and you will see a raw container as soon as this loads. Yeah, this one. So we are going to create files, upload files here. We are going to read those files, we are going to delete those files. So now quickly jumping on to the code, and first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a environment variable out of it, or I'm going to create a virtual environment. So connect.py, and then select an environment variable, create a virtual environment. Okay, so this is complete. Now we are going to install our requirements.txt, and while this gets copied, I'm going to have a text file. Yeah, this text file, because this is what we are trying to will try to upload. And then let's wait for this to download the required files. You can always go and check in the libraries. Yeah, so everything related to Azure and low.env is completed. So now, first thing that you have to do here is import uh, the package that we just deployed, just installed, and from this we import a blob client service. That's all we need, and from .env we include a load.env. And once we do that, and we also need an import OS. Now we'll start reading values from it. So connection string is os dot get env. I am going to use what uh, automatic recommendation I'm going to get, and then or maybe I should put the correct name here. This name sounds more appealing, and this should be Azure account URL, and there should be Azure account name, and this one is Azure account key, and this one should be Azure container name. Right, and we are just going to read those in our connect.py. So we have an account URL, and this is going to be from here: account name, account key, container name. Yeah. All right, so what we are going to do now is put the first method in place, because what we are will try to do at the first point is to upload something to this blob container. So we will start with defining, or maybe, yeah, let's try with upload, because there is nothing, so there is no point in reading. Upload to blob storage, right? And what we get is a file path and a file name. So you mention the path in which you want to create that file and the file name that you want to give it. So you create a blob service client, and now as I mentioned, in order to connect with a blob storage, you can use either connection string or the access keys. We are going to do both. So connect with access key. So this method as of now does not exist, so let's go ahead and create this method, connect with access keys. What we are going to do is just to make sure that the error messages, if there's any, is received. So we have a blob, and we have a blob service client, and blob service client dot from no, this one is with access key. So we are going to mention that my account URL is account URL, and then, sorry about this period, and then we have credential. We create a credential object, and that credential object contains account name, which is our Azure account name, and then we have an account key, which is it should be a key value pair. It is actually a key value pair, and Azure account key, I think this should be Azure account URL. Account URL. naming convention is always funny, so I'll just copy from here. Sorry about that. Account key. What's wrong with this one? Cannot be argument or string. None cannot be assigned to parameter account URL. Okay, so account URL, all I have to do is explicitly mention that this is a string, so that this error is removed, and create credentials, and credentials is credential. This is a credential, and this is supposed to be a dictionary. Alright, what's the problem now? So we have string. Okay, same issue. Everything should be a string, and this should be a string, and then this should be a string. And while we are on it, let's mark this also a string. Okay, so now we have a blob service client, and then we just return this blob service client, and if there is any exception, we print that print that error. And instead of this, I'll do a throw me the exception that happened. Maybe not throw, just leave it as is, and we do a returner. Okay, so now we are connected with the access keys. We have a element, or we have an object of our blob service client. Next we have to do is we have to create a blob file, right? Blob this is just a file name that I'm putting it all together. And because what I'm trying to do is I'm not intending to just save it on the raw layer itself. I'm thinking to save it, like create a folder structure, something like this, test and my files, and then put a file name. And so that's how my data or my file will be saved. And then once I have a blob file name, all I need to do is create a blob client, and blob service client dot get blob client. We have a container, which is the container name variable, and we have a blob, which is my blob file name. It's the variable we just created right on line number 26. Blob file name, right? So now that we have this, all we have to do is with open, and what we are going to open, we are going to open the file path, because this is the input file that we are receiving. So we are going to read that file. We are going to read the data from that file as you can say data. And then we have a blob client, and we tell that client to upload my blob. And what I am trying to, or what we won't explicitly say that if there is a data, or maybe I can write if there is an existing file. We do not have it, but we are going to run it the next time, so just in case. So if there is a file that exists, then rewrite it, and then we just mention that uploaded file name to, yeah, this is a good enough method. So now in order to execute this, we have an upload to file and upload to blob storage. This is now the path to my file, where my file is located. But if you see, the file is located at random.txt, but because it can cause a problem in terms of relative path or the absolute path, so I'm just going to give an absolute path to it. And for that, copy relative path, and so this won't work, or maybe let's try, it might work. And the name that I want it to be updated is random, not just random but random thoughts.txt. Now let's see how this works, if it is able to take this path or not. So in order to run this, I just do a quick click and uploaded random thoughts.txt. Let's quickly go to the blob and check if the file exists. So yes, there's a test, there's a file, and then there is a random thoughts.txt. Maybe will I be able to see the data from this user interface? View edit, yes. So blah blah blah, got something. And now one thing that we can try is we can try updating this value. This is an update to the input file. So just make an update, execute it again. Expectation is that this new file that you see, or this file that you see, should have that updated data because we put override equals to true. Now this is about dealing with this data or uploading the file. And there is another update. Yeah, now this was about updating or loading this file using or connecting using an access key. Now we can also connect using or connect with connection string, right? As we talked about, there were a couple of methods using which you can connect to your blob. We just looked at how to do that using access keys. Now we are going to look at how to do that using a connection string. So again, we are going to do a try, and we need a blob service client. The only difference is what we are going to pass here is we are saying, okay, it's a blob service client, and we are going to connect to it using our connection string. We do mention this is an inbuilt method of the package that we are currently using. So it contains or it expects a variable, and this we can do a connection string. Maybe rename this also to be something fancy. Connection string, missing an s, right? So now this is connection string. So once you have a blob service client, we just return that, return my blob service client, and my exception remains what we did in the previous step, right? Now if we try to do the exact same thing, upload a blob storage using not the connection string or not the access key but the connection string, our experience is going to be exactly the same. So I copy this, comment, connect with connection string, and just repeat this. Now you must have noticed I added another row here. So I'll just run this, upload it. I will go to this method. I will refresh, and this should now show me the new line that I added. This is another update. So works fine as we were expecting. Now this was upload, but not just upload, we really want to do a lot of other things. But before that, let me add another file. So just name it random2 dot txt, and just put something. This is another random file, and let me upload this as well. I'll show you why. Random thoughts part 2. So I'll quickly upload this, and we will go ahead and see we have 2 files. Okay, now the reason I did that is because I wanted to write another method of listing all the blobs that exist in my blob storage. I just want to have a list of it, or list it down, read and give me all the names and information. So again, we have a blob service client. You must have understood it by now that any time you want to connect with the service, you need a blob service client. Now you have a blob service client, you have already connected to blob, but you don't really want to go in which blob, which container your file exists. So then you create a client service or a container client, and our container name is raw. So you have a get container client and your container name, which is coming from environment files. Once you have this, all you have to do is get all the blobs from that particular container. So container client dot list blob. So now you're explicitly saying, okay, all the items that you see, just list it down. So for blob in maybe better naming, blob list, and then just print it. I'm going to see what it gives me. The expectation, let me clear this console, and yes, it gives me that first file is random thoughts, blob size is 809 bytes, last modified was this time, and then there was another thoughts part 2, byte size, blob size is this, last modified this. Now again, so we have uploaded, we have listed, and what more can we do with this? We can delete a blob, right? Or before that, we can download a blob. In order to try something with the download, let me delete this random thoughts part 2 or random 2, or maybe let's keep it because we are going to download it with a different name altogether. So commenting this, what we are going to do is download. So we are going to download a blob, and what we need is a file name when we are downloading something, and this is the blob file name. So basically this is a, if I be more explicit, this is a blob file name with path. What that means is, in order to get this file random thoughts part 2, I need this text slash files slash random thoughts part 2 blob file name with path. Again the same thing, we need a blob service client, we don't need that much autocorrect. Connect with access keys. So we created a blob service client, we will then create a container client exactly like this. So I'll just copy and paste. Yeah, we have a blob client, we have a container client, then we have a blob client as well. Blob client is created using a container client dot get blob client, and this blob, we will give blob with blob file name with path as our input. Now what we are going to do is, I want it to be downloaded and I want to read all data out of it. So I'm not going to write it in a file, I can just go with open and write it in a file, but right now I'm more interested into just writing it down or printing it down. So I'm just going to, not this, but I will just blob client, but this is not blob client, this is a blob client or blob data. Always nice to name your variables something that really makes sense to you later. So I will do a download blob, and my file name is test slash files slash random thoughts part 2.txt. Okay, let's clear this, let's run. Yeah, this is another random file. If I try to do this with random thoughts, because that was a bigger file, and I should be able to see all the data that's in there. Alright, one last thing that I want to do with this is a destructive one, and this is delete all blobs, delete all blobs, because you might have to run a job where you want to delete something. So in order to do that, we there are some things which are common. We create a blob client, we create a container client because we want to delete everything from that container, and then we have a list of blobs. We created a list here, so we'll get this, and then for each and every blob in this blob list, we just use the container client, because container is the owner for that blob, and delete blob with my blob name. Blob name will always be the complete name with the file path. And then there's another thing that we can do is, there are two ways to do this. Either you can put a loop on it, or the another way which is more elegant is to have a container client, and container client dot delete blobs. You mention all the blobs here, and then you mention blob list. Something naming convention wrong here. Yeah, so in Python, when you have a list and you pass it with a asterisk, it actually goes in as a dictionary, so that the method can use it. I'm just going to call this delete of blobs, clear my console, run it. Yeah, I didn't print a message, but looks like job was done. Yeah, everything was done. So there is no further files, and these are majorly the methods that you would always want to do over a storage account. You want to connect with it, you want to upload, you want to download, you want to override, create, delete. I think we have covered almost every possible action that you can do. There's another one which is copy, but copy again requires copying from something and putting it somewhere. So that's more or less reading and writing. So you can manipulate or pick and play these methods to utilize something more out of your requirement. Uh, yeah, I guess I hope it was helpful. See you in the next one. Thank you.